I'm convinced that Earthshock stands out as one of the all-time greats of Doctor Who because of brilliant sets, sentimental moments and brilliant scripting, and hopefully in this video I'll be able to express my love for this absolutely bloody brilliant Doctor Who episode. What I think I love most about this story is the fact that you haven't got one or two Cybermen, you've got like 10, which makes the whole story more exciting because you can have Cybermen dying all over the place, you can have them walking around and looking scary, you can have them marching around everywhere, and they look really cool. So I think that's what makes the story brilliant to start off with. But there's so many other things. As I said before, the sets. That set is absolutely magnificent. You've got silos all over the place, you've got, the vast massiveness of this whole complex. You've got a bridge, you've got, staircases, you've got all these things. You've got a cyber control section, you've got the main control room, you've got all these wonderful things. And it must have cost an absolute fortune. I think that's what they did. They said, this is an episode and we're going to spend lots of money on it. Let's do it. And they really did it with, spectacular style. The scripting is fantastic. There were some wonderful, wonderful lines in there. Like, Tegan says something like, I don't think you'll like Earth. You'll get rusty. And also, the captain has a brilliant line in which he says, this is piracy! This is war! And I really like that line. I think it's a really strong, powerful line. I mean, obviously this story is well written because there are some really strong lines. Like when Adric says, I'll find my own way. And there's this whole sort of Adric. It's a very Adric story because obviously in the end he does die. And so there's this whole theme of Adric going back to E-Space and his origins, which are explored most heavily in later parts of the story. But there's one thing I didn't understand. If Berger and the captain and the other captain go into that airlock and go into some sort of escape pod, won't they go back to when the dinosaurs ruled and then just get eaten by a dinosaur? Because they've travelled back in time, haven't they, if you remember? So wouldn't they get eaten by the dinosaurs? I don't know. Possibly. And I said before, the vast quantity of Cybermen make that story so much better. I mean, it's so rich, and you have... I like the fact that you have all these Cybermen, and there's a battle, and you see the Cybermen shooting at the humans, and you see the humans fighting back and shooting the Cybermen, and you see the whole chest units explode. I'm very fond of these cyber guns. I love them. They're just so... I just love them. They're just brilliant. You just have this, and you can shoot someone dead, and then it's so exciting, these guns. It's just like a great big cyber battle between good and evil, and I just love it. My absolute favourite scene from this entire story, there's only one. It's a legendary scene in which Tegan just runs over to a Cyberman, grabs his cyber gun, and just destroys this Cyberman. I love it. It's just amazing Tegan sort of stuff. I just love it. It's just like Tegan just dramatically runs towards this Cyberman, completely destroys him. I may be very hyper because I've had an energy drink and 2 cups of tea with lots of sugar in it. So I'm hyper! So let's go back to the start of the story, where we're sort of in the caves. It's not a very exciting start to the story, because it's all about people going around in caves. But what's the interesting thing is these androids. And what's good about them is that they can kill someone and make them melt. And they become like this sort of melting goo, which I thought was a wonderful effect they did there. But unfortunately their guns don't seem capable of doing this. Because they go pew, and they just shoot a little bit of out. And so it's not a very powerful gun, so you don't think that it actually can do that. But I wouldn't want to come face to face with an android. Episode 2 is more exciting because you see the androids being destroyed, and the guns in this story are good. Some episodes of Doctor Who, they have really rubbish guns. An example, Resurrection of the Daleks, absolutely useless guns. They're just so crap, aren't they? They're like, it's just a gun with a little light at the end. It's not exciting. But these guns, you see the great big purple and pinky sort of colour gun come out, and it's really good. And they've got the wonderful wow sort of effect. I can't do the noise of the gun. So I like that. And the other thing I like is the fact that the main control room has all these sort of shields, and the shields go down, and the Cybermen try to break in, rather awesomely, and the Doctor manages to stop one of the Cybermen coming in, and he just sort of puts his fist in, and the Doctor stops it, and the Cyberman is stuck in the door, which is a memorable scene and very well done. I like that. I like that scene very much. There are some scenes, of course, which aren't very good, like when the Cybermen are marching down the corridors and there's like 3 sets of Cybermen, and obviously it's just some sort of copy, they duplicated it and you can see all 3. Yeah, a bit of a cheesy scene there. But they haven't got that many Cybermen. They have a very good quantity in this story, but they haven't got enough to do that wonderful effect there. You see a lot of cyber arse in this story, which I don't like. You see lots of, there's lots of shots of the Cybermen's bottoms, which you don't want to see at all. And it makes you kind of think, who the hell was filming this story? And what made him film so much cyber bottom? And obviously the main thing in this story is the fact that Adric does die. And it's done beautifully. Absolutely beautifully. Because, first of all, there's some lines like, I'll find my own way. And it's very poetic. Secondly, there's this whole issue with Adric holding up this thing that his brother gave him. And that is very beautiful. I love the fact that that's there. And it was only a couple of years ago that I realised that he was holding this in his hand. And he's just holding it up to his chest. Because I think he knows he's going to die. And that's very beautiful how they've put that there for sentimental reason. And then you see sort of a close-up of his face, and then the whole ship explodes. And Nissa's the first to go, and she starts crying. And this is a wonderful scene, and I don't think many people realise what's actually going on. And Tegan says, Doctor, and then she starts crying. And then the Doctor sort of looks down as if to study the emotions of humans. And that's how I see it. I don't know whether you see that, but I see that. He's sort of like studying the sadness of this situation. Obviously, another big part of this story is the music. And the best music piece in this entire story is the da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, which is known as the Adric theme. And it's an extremely beautiful piece of music. It's sad, and it's a shame it wasn't used. I don't know whether it was, but it's a shame it's never used in other stories. I think it might have been used in the first story he came in, Full Circle. Was it? Yeah. Yeah. So the death scene is sort of like a really powerful scene, and obviously, because it's a sad scene, there is no closing music. And if they did put closing music in, I think it would have destroyed the story. The whole sadness of that moment. Adric is dead. And it's just really sad how it's nothing. There's not even any sad music. It's just nothing. The quietness, the silence of fear that's going on. And you just, nothing. And there's a picture of the star that's been destroyed. So the death scene is obviously 10 out of 10. So the Cybermen, yes, the Cybermen are good in this story, although they don't seem to sound very good, because there's one Cyberman who sort of sounds like a really fat bloke who's got no hair and got a really rough beard. That's how I see him, the Cybermen. So they're not very, but they look good. They don't sound good. And I think it's really wonderful when they break out of those silos, and it could have been filmed better. For someone who likes to get clips from Doctor Who stories, they could have done it better. Like, and you just don't know what's happening. I think when the Cybermen die, it's also very good. I mean, the pain that's in the Cyber Leader is just brilliant. They're not supposed to feel pain, but they do, and it's really nice when they do. So you can sort of see the Cyber Leader's hand trying to sort of break the Doctor's hand, but he can't quite do it. And he's just going, and it's like just rubbing this thing into his chest and completely making him clogged up. And then eventually, the Doctor swings round and grabs his cyber gun and just shoots it right into his sort of heart. I know they haven't got hearts, but it's sort of like the chest unit is their heart, and he's sort of like stabbing this knife into his heart and shooting this thing to death. It has many good themes. Very good music, very good scripting, very good costumes. They should really take a hint at the new series, at what this is. Maybe we should mail a copy of Earthshocks to the BBC, and then they can pass it on to the people who create the new series, and just said, yes, this is what's called Doctor Who, and it's nothing like what you're making. There is one more thing I wanted to say. In the new series, they have this awful way of showing how Cybermen walk. And they have this clonk, clonk, clonk noise, which is extremely incorrect. They have crappy boots. In this story, you can hear the vroom, 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 which is a much more nicer noise. And that's how Cybermen should sound when they're marching. But in the new series, it's sort of a clonking noise, and I don't like that. It sort of makes it sound like they're made of metal. I mean, the new series Cybermen are absolutely, utterly crap. There's nothing good about them. They cry. What? I mean, having a Cyberman cry is just the absolute limit. It's like, I want to take this and whack it round my... Oh, by the way, there is a sticker on here. My weight has had a boo-boo. It makes me want to whack this over my head and never wake up. It's just... What the hell were you thinking? Were you completely and utterly stoned when you were writing this? He's either pissed or stoned, or got a very tiny brain. I'm opting for the one he's got a very tiny brain. He has. I mean, I don't know who wrote that scene with the crying, but Cybermen do not cry. What's going to happen next? Are the Cybermen going to burst into song and start singing, "We're crying over you, crying over you"? Wouldn't surprise me. You see, the problem is, Stephen Moffat is a ginormous queer, so this means that he's going to write Doctor Who in the most campest way possible. I wouldn't be surprised in, another 2 or 3 years we get a pink Dalek, which will make me want to do this.